Hey everybody, I'm Trevor.
The Lasso.
Do you know how to use a lasso?
No, I'm not a yee-hauler.
Today we're going to be checking out the latest project by The Lasso, The Sound of Lasso. Here's the sound of Lasso.
Oh, I got ya.
Here's the sound of the lasso.
Actually, I think this is the noise of the
Bulls
lasso.
on parade.
I think this is the noise of the lasso, actually. Sounds like an Aphex Twin track.
That's pretty interesting. The Lasso is a electronic dance music producer. He was a longtime collaborator of Orlando Chill, and he just recently signed. I think he's the most recent signee of Mellow Music Group, record label, who has incredible artists such as Open Mike Eagle and Apollo Brown. And
I don't think Open Mike Eagle signed anymore because he has the auto reverse stuff. But
oh,
Still
yeah,
Quelle.
Yeah, Still Quelle, Denmark Vesey, MC Paul Barman.
Yeah.
I mean, people have released some of our favorite records of this past couple of years,
Yeah.
actually. The Sound of Lasso is the Lasso's like first solely electronic record.
Yeah.
And there's not like a ton known about this guy, but he is just one. He's just one guy.
Yeah. Working with like 13 other artists on this project,
Yeah.
13 other collaborators. And for me,
There's just one Lasso.
there's just one lasso, but he wrangled up 13 people with it and he pulled them towards him. But I found this to actually be a surprisingly solid chillwave release for me personally, because on the first listen of this, I had no interest in this. This wasn't doing anything, but listening back to it a second time, it really actually progressed pretty well up until the end. For me, I think once you get to like closer, it kind of doesn't progress as well. It kind of runs out of some of the ideas. All the way to oscillations, I think it just kind of is out of new things to say. But up until that point, I find moments like Rippling Meter, Heliotrope, Portraits, Heaven, Forever Green to just be remarkable in how much they progress in the different sounds. I think we get different traits for different instruments that sometimes progress, but most of the time stay the same. The pianos on this, when they do show up, they're always like club or lounge like pianos, giving kind of a nostalgic sense and atmosphere and tone. We get very crunchy drums, very metallic drums through this entire thing. Guitars, if they're more acoustic guitars, they always have a heavy presence, while the electric guitars are usually combined in the background with like an instrument like a saxophone or like the very distorted synths to create a larger soundscape. They really don't have too much presence in the front. The synths are always super distorted. They're never really chill. Vocal samples, if they're from the main female vocalist that kind of shows up on this, they could be very angelic, or they can just be background vocal samples, just played out and sampled throughout the entire track. Sometimes they're reversed, sometimes not. But I found like the progression of a lot of the instrumentation throughout this thing to be really interesting, and just how elements of the arrangement almost had like certain characteristics to them, which I found would really be cool. Yeah, I just think this thing flows super well for me, and it's everything I really wanted out of a chillwave release. It needs to take me away, but it doesn't need to be. It can't be mindless. It has to be attentive, and I think for everything until up to the end, it does that for me. A lot of these tracks are around 2 minutes, besides like the opening and closer, which are around 4. But for the most part, everything just flows really well. We're going to these different spaces. It transitions really well. There's more shakeups in the tracks than I think they are in the transition from track to track, which is nice. So we'll get a mix up usually halfway through the track that does something different and is more bold than usually the transitions between tracks, which is nice. I find this thing very breathless. At times very angelic and heavenly, but also it takes you to like a more grimier or more harsher spots. I think it seems very thoughtful in a sense of what they're trying to do here for me, and it's working. This is what I want on my chill wave. Just something that can take me away, but it has a well thought out and well balanced production to it.
I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree. I would have to say. I myself I really like chillwave, and I really like vaporwave especially. Which kind of, I don't know, kind of like a dumb thing to like, but I really like that like nostalgic sense of vaporwave and chillwave and what the movement has been doing. Honestly, the sound of Lasso, this record might as well be like a beat tape that was sent out to any producer and be like, "Hey, buy my beats," kind of thing. I don't feel like the record progresses as much as I want it to. I feel like the transitions between the tracks, I don't want it to sound like one track altogether, but I want there to be kind of like an ebb and flow to it. And to this, I just feel like every track is a self-contained little thing, and it just does its own thing, and then it's over. And then the next one starts, and it does its own thing, and then it's over. It feels kind of like a boring release, because not only it's in like a weird spot, because not only is every track self-contained, but not every track sounds different from one another.
And I think I can completely agree, because I feel like moments towards the end, especially when you get into a closer and across a reflection, those sound like the same track. They have the same makeup as the same track. They do the same rhythms as the same track. But like those are the moments where I realized that I don't think any of the other tracks really do that for me. They feel like pretty balanced in what they are, but they don't seem to replicate themselves.
Yeah. Well, I guess to me they do seem to replicate themselves. I feel like for Evergreen going into like Respiration, it feels like if Evergreen is like A, then the next one's like A prime. It sounds like very similar, but it's just like a little different. And then the next one, Pier of Dreams, is like pretty similar to the one before it, but just like a little different. I don't feel like there's like enough of a shakeup to make each one of these feel like its own unique track. It's almost like if somebody sent you like a beat tape of all these like different beats that they have made, and they all use like the same patch, or they all, sound very similar, but there are like a couple like distinct differences. Like, I'm not saying that there are some like decent tracks on here. Like, I really like Heliotrope. I think that's a really interesting track. I think Portraits and Heaven were both like interesting tracks, but everything else I feel like it didn't progress the way I wanted it to. It didn't feel like this album was trying to like tell a story. It felt like very like stagnant water. I think in Chillwave or Vaporwave or any of that, it has to feel like we're like moving somewhere. It has to feel like a river flowing, or even just like a creek, just something going somewhere. But this, I just feel like I'm sitting in a puddle.
See, for me, I feel like it does have progression. We do get different sounds, and we get different showcases, and I talked about how different instruments have like different characteristics to them. I feel like I am getting that, and I feel like we're disagreeing on this, but I personally feel like we are progressing up until the end, at least. But yeah, I had fun with this. I thought it was a decent Chillwave release, and I think that's all I really gotta say about it anymore. Till next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see you, boys.
Bye, everybody.